"Ma'am, step away from the door. Final warning!" The SWAT officer barked, his voice amplified, weapon raised. Inside, 65-year-old Martha Evans, confused and frail, clutched her husband's arm, the red dots of multiple tasers dancing on her chest. "Please," she whispered, "there's a mistake." Before her husband, retired Sergeant Major Michael Evans, 70, could intervene further, the officer fired. Martha convulsed, collapsing. Michael didn't shout, didn't charge. He just looked at the team leader, his eyes like ice, and uttered 6 words that froze the entire heavily armed team in their tracks. If you believe a few words can carry the weight of a lifetime, type "Never Forget" below. Sergeant Major Michael Evans, U.S. Army Special Forces, retired, lived a life of quiet routine in a modest suburban home, a stark contrast to the decades he'd spent navigating chaos in some of the world's most dangerous, forgotten corners. His days now revolved around his beloved wife, Martha, who suffered from early-onset Alzheimer's. Her world slowly crumbled, her moments of lucidity becoming precious, fleeting islands in a sea of confusion. Michael was her rock, her constant, tending to her needs with the same unwavering dedication he'd once shown his men. He was patient, gentle. His large, calloused hands, which had once expertly handled weaponry and demolitions, now adept at buttoning her sweaters and guiding her through foggy afternoons. Their small house was filled with mementos of a life shared: faded photographs, Martha's watercolors, his neatly arranged military books. He rarely spoke of his service. The medals and commendations were tucked away, preferring the quiet anonymity of his current life. He was just Mr. Evans, the quiet man who cared for his ailing wife. Their neighbors knew them as a devoted elderly couple, slightly reclusive. No, one knew the steel that lay beneath Michael's gentle exterior, the lethal skills honed over 30 years, the man who had led clandestine operations, advised generals, and survived situations that would break most. He had learned to control his reactions, to assess threats with preternatural calm, a skill about to be tested in the most unexpected and brutal way. The call to 911 had come from a new neighbor, young, overly anxious, and prone to misinterpretation. They'd seen Martha wandering in her front yard earlier that morning, looking disoriented, a common occurrence Michael usually managed quickly. Later, they'd heard a loud crash from inside the Evans house. Michael had accidentally dropped a heavy pot in the kitchen. Fearing elder abuse or a medical emergency, the neighbor called, embellishing the details with panicked assumptions. Standard procedure dictated a welfare check, but due to the misinterpreted report of a possible disturbance and an unresponsive subject, Michael hadn't answered the door immediately as he was helping Martha in the bathroom. The dispatcher, following a recently revised protocol for potentially volatile domestic situations, escalated the response. Instead of a couple of patrol officers, a full SWAT team was dispatched, overkill born from bureaucratic caution and a tragic lack of context. Michael was in the kitchen helping Martha with her lunch when the hammering began at the front door, accompanied by shouted commands. "Police! Open up! We know you're in there!" He rushed to the front window, peered through the blinds, and his blood ran cold. Heavily armed men in tactical gear, helmets, shields, weapons raised, fanned out across his small lawn. A welfare check? This looked like a raid. Martha, agitated by the noise and commotion, followed him, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. "Michael, what's happening? Who are those men?" "It's all right, dear," Michael said, keeping his voice calm though his mind raced, assessing the sudden, inexplicable threat. "Just a misunderstanding. Stay behind me." He moved to the door, intending to open it and explain, but the commands outside escalated. "Occupant, open the door now, or we will force entry." Before Michael could react further, the front door splintered inwards under the force of a battering ram. SWAT officers poured into the small living room, weapons leveled, shouting conflicting commands. "Get down! Hands up! Show me your hands!" Michael instinctively moved to shield Martha, pushing her gently behind him. "There's a mistake," he yelled over the din. "This is my home. My wife is ill." Martha, terrified by the sudden invasion of armed men, the noise, the aggression, began to cry out, clutching Michael's arm, her frail body trembling. "Please, don't hurt us," she pleaded. One of the younger SWAT officers, adrenaline pumping, perhaps misinterpreting Martha's distress or her grip on Michael as resistance, focused on her. "Ma'am, step away from him. Final warning." Red laser dots from multiple tasers appeared on Martha's chest. Michael saw it, a cold dread gripping him. "She's my wife. She's 65. She has Alzheimer's," he shouted, trying to de-escalate, trying to protect her. But in the chaos, his words were lost or ignored. The young officer, fixated on Martha, as a potential non-compliant subject near the class. Primary target, Michael, simply because he was the adult male present, made a split-second disastrous decision. "Taser! Taser! Taser!" he yelled, and fired. Martha screamed, a high, thin sound, as the barbs hit her. Her body arched, convulsed violently, as 50,000 volts coursed through her frail frame. Then she collapsed to the floor like a discarded doll, smoke faintly. Rising from the points of contact, Michael felt something snap within him, a lifetime of controlled fury threatening to erupt. But years of training, of facing down death, kicked in. Rage would get Martha killed, would get him killed. He needed to control the situation, not escalate it. He looked past the young officer who had just tased his wife, his gaze locking onto the SWAT team leader, Sergeant Miller, identifiable by his insignia and slightly different helmet. Michael stood ramrod straight, his expression unreadable, his eyes like chips of flint. He didn't shout. He didn't plead. He simply spoke, his voice quiet but carrying an authority that cut through the remaining chaos. "Call General Alistair Reed, right now." The 6 words hung in the suddenly quiet room, stark and incongruous amidst the tactical gear and the smell of discharged tasers. Sergeant Miller blinked. Around him, his team members, who had been moving to secure Michael, hesitated. The young officer who had fired the taser looked confused, then defiant. "Who the hell is General Reed, and who are you to give orders?" Miller held up a hand, silencing his subordinate. There was something in the old man's eyes, in the quiet, absolute certainty of his voice, that gave him pause. This wasn't the usual panicked response of a surprised homeowner. This was different. "Sir," Miller began cautiously, "we're responding to a welfare check, a possible domestic disturbance." "You just tased my 65-year-old wife, who has advanced Alzheimer's," Michael stated flatly, his gaze unwavering. "Now you will call General Alistair Reed. He is chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Tell him Sergeant Major Michael Evans, call sign Archangel Actual, has a code black situation at this address. He will understand. Archangel Actual. Code black. Joint Chiefs." The terms, utterly out of place in this suburban living room, resonated with a chilling authority that even the hardened SWAT officers recognized as something far beyond their pay grade. Sergeant Miller felt a prickle of unease. He'd heard whispers, old, stories from gray-beard instructors at the academy about certain call signs, certain protocols that bypassed normal channels reserved for individuals whose service was so sensitive, so deep, they operated outside conventional records. "Look," Miller said, trying to regain control, "I don't know any General Reed. We need to secure the premises. Get medics for your wife." "Your medics can wait until you make that call," Michael interrupted, his voice still quiet, but now edged. "With ice. Do it, or the consequences will be on your head, Sergeant, not mine." He then added, almost as an afterthought, "My credentials are in my back left pocket. You may retrieve them. Carefully." One of the SWAT officers, on Miller's nod, cautiously approached Michael, frisked him, and retrieved his wallet. He opened it, and inside, behind a faded driver's license, was a military ID card, but not just any ID. This one bore classifications and symbols the officer had never seen before, but instinctively recognized as far above top secret. He showed it to Miller. Miller's face went pale. He'd seen enough Hollywood movies and attended enough classified but much lower-level briefings to know that some IDs meant do not touch, do not ask, just escalate. He pulled out his satellite phone, a piece of equipment reserved for major tactical situations, and looked at Michael. "Give me that name again." "General Alistair Reed, Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff." Michael repeated. "Tell him Archangel Actual Code Black." Sergeant Miller dialed. The call was routed through a special military switchboard, identified by keywords, and patched through with astonishing speed. On the other end, in a secure briefing room at the Pentagon, General Alistair Reed was in the middle of a high-level counterterrorism update with the Secretary of Defense. His aide discreetly handed him a note. The general read it, his face instantly hardening. He excused himself abruptly, taking the secure line offered. "Reed," General Reed said, his voice like a whip crack, cold and lethal. "General Reed, sir," Miller began, his voice now laced with extreme deference. "This is Sergeant Miller, Anytown, PD SWAT. I have a Sergeant Major Michael Evans, callsign Archangel Actual, at my location. He states he has a code black situation, sir. We responded to a welfare check and there was an incident. His wife was tased." General Reed's voice came back like thunder. "Sergeant Miller, are you telling me you deployed a taser on Martha Evans, wife of Archangel Actual?" "Sir, there was confusion. She was non-compliant." "Non-compliant?" Reed roared, the sound distorted but terrifying even over the sat phone. "She has Alzheimer's, you damn fool, for which Sergeant Major Evans is her sole caregiver. What is your current tactical status?" "Sir, we have the residence secured. Medics are en route for Mrs. Evans. You will stand down your entire team. Sergeant Miller, immediately. No one touches Sergeant Major Evans. No one enters his home further. You will await my arrival. I am en route via priority air. ETA approximately 45 minutes. A pause. Then, deadly quiet. "And, Sergeant?" "Yes, General." "Pray, Sergeant. Pray that Martha Evans is all right, because if she is not, the personal and professional fallout for you and your department will be biblical. Archangel Actual is a national asset of the highest order. You have just blundered into a hornet's nest the size of Texas." The line went dead. Sergeant Miller slowly lowered the phone, his hand shaking. He looked at his team, then at Michael Evans, who stood watching him, his expression still unreadable, but now tinged with a profound sorrow, as he knelt beside Martha's still form. "Stand down," Miller barked at his team. "Everyone, weapons, safe, medics only inside for Mrs. Evans. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gives Sergeant Major Evans any trouble. We wait." The SWAT team, visibly shaken, complied, their earlier aggression replaced by nervous, bewildered obedience. They had come for a welfare check. They had found a legend, and in doing so, had potentially triggered an incident with repercussions they couldn't begin to imagine. Minutes later, the quiet suburban street was transformed. Black sedans with government plates sealed off both ends. A military helicopter landed in the nearby park, rotors still spinning. General Alistair Reed, in full Class A uniform, 4 stars gleaming, strode into the Evans home, his face a mask of controlled fury. He went straight to Michael, who was now sitting beside Martha, holding her hand as paramedics worked on her. She was conscious but disoriented, crying softly. "Michael," Reed said, his voice surprisingly gentle as he knelt beside his old friend and comrade. "I am so sorry." Beyond words. Michael just nodded, his eyes never leaving Martha. They didn't. "No, Alistair," they just reacted. "There's no excuse," Reed said grimly. He stood and faced Sergeant Miller, who looked like he was about to face a firing squad. "Sergeant," Reed began, his voice like ice, "your department's handling of this situation was a catastrophic failure of intelligence, judgment, and basic humanity. Sergeant Major Evans is not just a veteran. He is one of this nation's most decorated and sensitive special operators, responsible for missions that have safeguarded this country for decades. His wife is under his sole care due to a debilitating illness. Your team's actions today were not just incompetent, they were criminally negligent. A pause. Then, there will be a full investigation. Federal. Expect it. He turned to the young officer who had fired the taser, now pale and trembling, and locked eyes with him. As for you, you are lucky Sergeant Major Evans possesses more restraint than you do brain cells. You will be hearing from my legal counsel. General Reed then took charge. He ensured Martha was transported to the best neurological facility in the state via military medevac. He arranged for a specialized care team for her and for Michael. He personally debriefed Sergeant Miller and the local chief of police, who had arrived looking apoplectic, making it clear the fallout from this welfare check would be severe and far-reaching. The neighbor who made the initial exaggerated call was also visited and given a stern lecture on responsible reporting. The story of the SWAT team, the tased wife, and the 6 words that brought a 4-star general down on their heads became a hushed cautionary tale within law enforcement and military circles, a stark reminder that you never ever know who you're dealing with, and that some quiet old men carry the weight of a nation's secrets and the unwavering loyalty of its most powerful defenders. Michael Evans never sought recognition, but the incident ensured that his and Martha's privacy and care were sacrosanct from then on, and Buddy, their old golden retriever, who had slept through the initial commotion in the backyard, was very glad when his quiet routine and his beloved Martha finally came home, because some men are more than just veterans. They are legends, and when their peace is shattered, the response can shake the foundations of ordinary life. Subscribe to Hidden Sparks if you believe in the unwavering bond between true comrades and that respect for our heroes should be absolute.